Matty Taylor. I can see him getting his car. I've decided to go to Bolton. I'm waving him going out the car park.
Just love moving teams, and then you have to do an initiation.
They just don't seem to be able to get deals over the line.
Who is going to be getting deals over the line? Phil Egan, good morning to you. How are you?
How you doing, lads?
The general state of the transfer window, I saw somebody saying it's officially open today. What does that mean?
It opens, yeah. It's been shut because it's slammed shut. Obviously, the last time it closed.
Why the 14th? It's a random date opening, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any reason for it. They just pick a date. But I always think that it's not really when it opens. It's all about when it closes. I think the fact that, remember, they tried it one season where they tried to finish it up before a bit earlier, but because it was for the Premier League, for example, it wasn't in line with the rest of Europe, so it actually created more problems, and clubs were missing out on players because those later deals, actually players went to other clubs around Europe. But yeah, like, deals have already been done, but I suppose now it's going to start getting even more ridiculous, is what I would say.
Okay, and sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but when does it actually close?
I would imagine it's the end of August.
Okay. It's not because there was summer transfer window opens. Oh no, summer transfer window will close in England at 11 p.m. Friday, September the 1st. So yeah,
Europe's top 5 leagues also the same date.
Yeah,
that's good.
So that wasn't the case a few years ago. They tried. I'd say that they tried. It didn't.
They were trying to get it to the end of to the start of the season.
Yeah,
and then there was a couple of weeks where no one really knew what was going on or how it was going to work after that. So okay, it is officially open today, and it's opened with a big fish, the biggest fish in world football, Kylian Mbappe, who will be out of contract at the end of next season and will be available to leave Paris Saint-Germain for free, and so therefore pocket all the cash that the club would get. He wrote to them and said, I'm not going to be taking up your kind offer of an extra year on that contract, so I'm going to play for you until the end of next season, and then I'll leave on a free transfer. And they were like, well, we will see about that. So what's going to happen here?
Well, this deal, or if it goes through or not, could have a serious knock-on effect of what happens around the rest of Europe in terms of, obviously, Real Madrid need a striker. Now, saying that, is Mbappe a striker?
He would kind of play in the Vinicius role, right?
That's the thing. I mean, and Vinicius is pretty good. Now, if Vinicius decided to leave Spain, I think we could all understand why, given the horrible time he's had the last few years, all the racial abuse, and he keeps going out on the pitch and he keeps producing these excellent performances. So Vinicius and Mbappe, could they play in the same team? Of course they could, because they're quality operators. But if a deal was to go through for Real Madrid to get Mbappe, then I suppose if you're Daniel Levy, then Tottenham, because Harry Kane's been linked with a move to Real Madrid, and if you're Tottenham, you'd have no problem selling to Real Madrid as opposed to one of your Premier League rivals, which he is always linked with Manchester United. So if the Mbappe deal goes through as well, then that's Real signing Mbappe and Jude Bellingham. That's a lot of money to pay over the summer. Does that mean they have to let a player go? What position is that player in? It comes back to, maybe, is it Vinicius?
If two things happen, if Kane does go to Madrid and Sheikh Yassim wins the takeover of Manchester United, is Mbappe to Old Trafford a serious possibility, or is that pie in the sky?
Well, it's something that you would see a lot of talk about, and I already have seen it, and that's why transfers just circulate such excitement from football fans. Just even the prospect of that gets United fans excited.
Just the thought of Mbappe in the Premier League, generally speaking, is exciting.
Say you wanted to, win over the slightly reluctant Manchester United fans to rally behind your takeover of the club, even though there might be some questionable issues around human rights and all that kind of things that football fans are sometimes care about and sometimes don't, depending on who's asking the question. Would you perhaps leak that the greatest footballer in the world might be the first signing that you make if you were to take over?
Could soften the blow, couldn't it?
There's a little bit of free public relations advice.
Well, Cristiano Ronaldo was a PR signing for United fans.
But that's Mbappe's 24, and
that's a massive.
Still has his best football ahead of him. We would assume, and
speaks perfect English as well.
Yeah.
These things count.
In terms of Harry Kane, I've always felt, though, he doesn't want to leave the Premier League. I think he wants that record. he wants to be the Premier League's
60,
all-time leading scorer. And
Well, we did discuss this just recently on the show, and the point was made that he could easily do 2 seasons at Real Madrid and then come back to anybody in the Premier League and score the remaining 25 goals over 3 or 4 years, because Harry Kane's game's not really based on pace.
no, well, we've seen in the last few seasons that he kind of has no problem withdrawing from attacks and being a playmaker as well. But
And could he play as long as Sheringham if he wanted? If there was a record there to be chased, he probably could.
Sheringham still looks like he could play, by the way.
Yeah.
I saw a video of him there during the week. But yeah, it's, as I said, the Mbappe thing, look, I mean, it might just go through the whole summer of will he, won't he, and then he actually does stay at PSG and then he plays out a season. But one thing that is quite certain is PSG's trying to attempt to try and win the Champions League with all these superstars hasn't worked, and they're actually further away from it than they have been for a while. They got to the final a few years ago, but even that final was when there was the mini tournament during COVID, and they were playing one-off games, and they could have won it, but they didn't. And Messi's gone. Talk that Neymar's going to go. Imagine they lost those 3 in the space of a few weeks.
Yeah, if I think they're going to get Marco Asensio, aren't they? So they'll still have a glittering array of attacking talent.
Yeah.
And I can also see a situation where they just decide to keep Mbappe for one more season, hope that they can turn the situation round in terms of him and his contract. But it does look like at that stage the right thing for him to do would be to go to Real Madrid. So what, over on balance, on the rate out of 10, where's Kylian Mbappe playing next season? Is it most likely Spain? And obviously in that case it would have to be Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think if he does go, it's going to be to Real Madrid. But I just don't know if he will go. This is the thing about transfers and reports and speculation, that we don't really know what's going on, and we don't know why all this has come out in the last few days. I mean, there was Mbappe saying, I told you that last summer that was going to be the case. So it's all about who has the position of power, and representatives will throw things out there as well. So it's become a big soap opera, and as I said, people love it. I mean, between now and the 1st of September, people will be just going through all sorts of different emotions because their club is linked to a player and they think this might happen, and then it gets pulled at the last minute, but then we find out actually it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's good for certain players to be linked with certain clubs, and it's good for certain clubs to be linked with certain players. One
that has happened is Alexis Mac Allister to Liverpool. I saw an interesting comment from Jimmy Carragher yesterday where he was saying, look, he has everything. He can play in different positions, Alexis Mac Allister. The one thing is, a lot of these great players that have left Brighton have maybe struggled after they've left Brighton, and that could be down to just how good the system is at Brighton, and De Zerbi and Potter before then. Is there any danger of that happening with Mac Allister, or is he just too good to not be a success?
Well, no, I mean, he's a World Cup winner. He's at that age of 24, which Liverpool like, and just that kind of, the way you described what happens with players that leave Brighton, you could say something similar of players that leave Liverpool, the Klopp's players, where they go somewhere else and it doesn't work out for them. But he has all the attributes to be a success in the Liverpool team, and I think what you'll see with Liverpool is, and they've tried to do it, is be more of a technical, have more technical ability in midfield, where we saw when they lost the ball last season how exposed they were, but obviously if you have a better technical ability in midfield, you're not going to lose the ball as often as they were. And I think you would imagine he's going to play in one of those more advanced roles, and then they still need bodies in there. They need energy, where they need players that, if they do lose the ball, they can get it back for you straight away. And by the way, he does that as well. He's straight into the team sheet as well. He's not a player that comes in and out of the team. Like, Klopp doesn't tend to do that too often. If he likes a player, he plays him. Yeah, but what Klopp does do is he gives a few months to kind of work out the system and how to play, and it can frustrate Liverpool fans at times where they look at this player and they think, why haven't they played? Did it with Fabinho, and all of a sudden then he came in. So it's I think they need I've always felt they needed at least 3 midfielders, so they have one. It'll be interesting to see what they do in terms of defence. They need another centre half. Do they go with a right back? Calvin Ramsey's going on loan to Preston. He played 93 minutes in total last season due to injuries. So will they go after another right back because they want to push Trent Alexander-Arnold on? They can use Trent Alexander-Arnold in both positions if they want. They can use him in that hybrid role where or they could actually maybe start him as a midfielder. I said I had my doubts whether he'd be good enough to play as one of the 3 midfielders, but certainly the glimpses, it's a small sample size that we saw towards the end of the season. He looks like he could do it. It just reinvigorated him. So but if he has to play in that hybrid role, which obviously we've seen John Stones do for Manchester City, that Trent Alexander-Arnold has shown that he can do it.
Yeah. Okay. The signing of Declan Rice to Arsenal looks almost like a done deal at this stage. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't happen, given how far down the line and how publicly the whoever's briefing the papers have got to the deal is agreed, the price is agreed, the personal terms are agreed. There's still some haggling going on about something which we're not quite sure about. Maybe they're waiting for the international window to close and then it becomes a done deal.
Yeah, well, he is away with the England squad at the moment, and there was a contrasting talk coming out of the game last week when they won the Conference League. Then again, Declan Rice is hardly going to say in his post-match interview after just lifting the Conference League for the club that, yeah, that's me done, I'm out of here. He has to be respectful in what he says. I mean, then David Sullivan comes out the next day and said, yeah, we told him he can go. It seems like a lot of money. Like, I watched that final last week, and it was, you're looking at him and Amrabat going, you could get Amrabat for half the price. But I know English players, there is a tax added to it. You have to have a certain amount of homegrown players in your squad. We just talked about Mac Allister there. Another player that had been linked with Liverpool was Mason Mount, and you'd have to pay twice the amount for Mason Mount than Alexis Mac Allister, and that's where the transfer market can be skewed. But again, sometimes huge price tags, they get forgotten about if a player hits the ground running. And
Grealish, all of a sudden 100 million, you're like, oh well,
people aren't even talking about it. They're talking more about how he had a really good season and he seems to be enjoying himself off the pitch now for the last few days. But why did he have a good season with Manchester City? He realised that to play for Pep Guardiola, he was going to have to work his absolute backside off, and he did it. And I actually think back to, there was a game when they played Liverpool where Liverpool were 1-0 up in that game and City go on to win, but Grealish prevents Liverpool from scoring a second goal, and then a couple of minutes later he's setting up the City goal. So the penny dropped with him. Very quickly, 2 of our potential World Cup attendees, Amber Barrett, who I really hope is on the plane just for emotional reasons. I think it'd be a crying shame if she doesn't, has joined Standard Liège, quietly putting together an incredible career of European experience, and so hopefully again, like when her playing days are over, she'll come back and be an important voice in the league at some level, and in helping our best young players to go and not just focus on the WSL for the future of their career. But anyway, so she's got Standard Liège, and Niamh Fahey signed a contract extension at Liverpool. Yeah, and Niamh Fahey's been on the continent as well, and several of our players have been. Diane Caldwell's another one, which would have played a lot of football in Germany. Louise Quinn's story is so interesting, where she was sending clips to clubs to basically show this is what I can do, and it just shows. Now, this is why it's so important, though, that the Women's Premier Division and Women's National League here gets its ducks in a row and make sure that players can develop here. And if they want to go off and play in Europe, that's fine, but that they don't have to if they don't want to. Yeah. And then it's not all about the WSL. What I can see at the moment is the WSL is becoming so good that it's very similar to what happened with the Premier League, where we have players playing in the WSL, but they're getting squeezed out of their clubs now, and they're starting to appear in the Championship. Now, the Championship is still a very good standard, but if it keeps going that way, then you get a situation like we have with the men's team, where there's more focus on developing players here. And that's why, that goes back to what the FAI were proposing last week when they released their strategic vision, that it is so important that if we want Look, here we are. When this World Cup kicks off on the 20th of July, it's going to be amazing. More than 80,000 people there. And this is class. But we have to make sure that this isn't a once off. Like, now is the time. And this is why the FAI were thinking, it came up that women's football, the growth of women's football is just going at a rapid rate. And we need to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, and that's why I think at least the document has a plan in place in a way that there wouldn't have been when the team in the 90s broke through. All right, that's the first of the new official transfer window.
We're back.
Deal or no deal open. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Nice lads.
Hi, Royce, Matty Taylor. I can see him getting his car. I've decided to go to Bolton. I'm waving him going out the car park.
Just love moving teams, and then you have to do an initiation.
They just don't seem to be able to get deals over the line.